Hello and welcome to another Demis Hellen tutorial. We're going to look at Psytrance today. We'll focus probably a bit more on the bass maybe, because that's the question that I've been asked. How can I get that kind of Psy bass? And I'm going to assume that you want that classic sound. So it's a saw wave, but we'll look into how I've built it. Let's just take a look at the sound itself. This is just the track in general. It's developed into a full track here. I'll show off the melody in a bit. It's in the very early stages, but nonetheless, let's have a listen. So as you can hear, I have set this into its raw state, so the melody here kind of goes from nice and bubbly and melodic into this really sharp, stabby, kind of accentuated melody. And it stands nicely against the offbeat bass, which is kind of rolling on 3 notes with the high bass rolling on 2. So the 2 basses in particular here, so if we just look at bass 1 for now, we have that classics kind of saw wave bass, and then we have a high bass with no low end to provide the sharper aspect that I'm not actually getting from the first bass. So let's have a look at the first one. This is in Hive, and I'll put this preset for download on my Facebook page. So all I have to do is follow the link in the description. Head over to my page. All you have to do is like the page, and then down the left hand side you will see free downloads on Facebook. So just head over there, right click and save, and it's all yours. So what I've taken here, I think I started off looking at some presets just to make sure there was no strange information that was missing, but it's all pretty self-explanatory really. What we have is a saw wave. I've set it to 2 octaves below, and all it's doing at the moment is using the oscillator 1 and the sub with the mod envelope to kind of create that stabbiness in there. And the mod envelope is obviously here, and on mod 1 we've got the decay pretty short, sustain non-existent, and then a bit of release on there just to stop any like clicking sounds. And the same goes for the attack. If there's a bit of a click, just up the attack a little bit till it disappears, but not to the point where the sound is not sharp. So that is what that's doing, and then the cutoff, the mod envelope is determined by how much cutoff is. So if you turn the cutoff even lower, you're going to get even more kind of a bubbly sound in the actual synth. So take a look at the, I think I've actually programmed this one in, or have I just done this as an arpeggio? I did so many different examples. Yes, this is the arpeggio one. So I'm using the built-in arp here. So it's set at 1/16th, and what we're doing here is, if you take a look at the velocity values, we have 0 and 0, so we've got 3 notes and 3 notes. So let's just go into here. So what this rhythm actually looks like, if I just show you on the G an octave above, that is what I am doing on the arpeggiator. So instead of drawing those notes in, I'm just holding them down, and that's where you get that sound from just a straight line, a sustained note on the piano roll. So just turn the velocities down, that's it. I've just manipulated the gate there so you can have it a little bit stabbier, shorter, longer. So I've opted for kind of just below midway, so we're getting a bit of that stab, and it's a little bit shorter than it being too long, because obviously the characteristics is kind of a nice fast-paced bass line. I've got it on the dirty preset up here. You have 3 modes, clean, normal and dirty. I've put it on dirty to give it a bit more edge. And then also we have on oscillator 2 another sine wave. Saw wave, which is set at just normal octave, and there's nothing happening here, it's just fully in, and it's using the sub, which is a square. So if I can just point out over here, we're using the sub also on filter 1, which is a saw wave as well. So we've got 3 saw waves and then a square. So it just made the sound a little bit more authentic, is probably the way to put it. And I've pretty much not done anything here on the amps and mod. It's more relating to this main sound here. So if we just take a listen to how the cutoff is going to manipulate the mod envelope, how it's triggering it once it goes a bit lower. So you have a lot of control. Obviously, if you up the mod envelope, it's going to let more of that signal through. But I like it at that pace. It sounds nice, but it gives you that maneuverability. So if you were creating a really big break, you can have that fading off and going do-do. And then just have the volume fade off so it sounds like it's disappeared. So just for this drop, this is where the presets lie. So that is the bass, and I've got that side bounce. Let's take a look at the bass high. Okay, so I think this one's a preset, I'm thinking. It's not saying, it's just saying it's registered to Richard Fox. Thank you to Richard Fox again for this plugin. So kind to provide me with it so we can do some tutorials. I'm going to have to start doing a few more on this, I think. Okay, so anyway, this high bass is consisting of another saw wave, and I'm not using oscillator 2 whatsoever, so we've just got a straight saw wave, and I've got it set to -1 octave for whatever reason, but I've pitched it accordingly on the piano roll to get the high bass. Same scenario again, the mod. So the amp is shaping the sound and how short it is, and then the mod is determining how much this mod envelope is shaping this cutoff. So we've got quite a medium kind of decay there, up to a nearly full sustained. So you get this. Let's just... Okay, so if we just bring this down, it just adds a little bit more of a sparkle on there, having it up there. And then if we bring it down, we get really short notes. So that's where I had it. The mod envelope is fully up with the cutoff quite low down, so it's coming from a very low cutoff but peaking through using this mod envelope, and that's just there to give that whole pace. And this one we're using 2 notes, and I think, did I draw these ones in, or are these exactly the same? Yeah. So in the ARP section here, we've got it set to the 1/16 time bass again on play, and as you can see, all we have on, so we've got the velocity values changed here, but we've actually only got 2 notes. And that's because I've turned these dots off. So you can turn them off, you can turn them on, or have like a longer note there. Yeah, and obviously it's confusing here having the dots on these because the velocity values are 0, so if you actually turn them off, that is the pattern, 2 dotted rhythms. So same again as on the other bass, if you're not too familiar. The other one had 3 notes, this one's just 2 notes, standard kind of offbeat trance bass, using 2 notes to give a nice fast pace. So I just didn't want 3 notes on that one. I think this is more than adequate to pace the track, and then this is to kind of add the clarity. And then once that's coupled with the kick drum, so let's listen to that into context because it sounds a bit awful on its own. Now once that raw synth is in there, this seems to blend in with it because it's at the very kind of same frequencies there. It will be on the same notes at points. So that's the pace of the bass, and then from there we've got bass 1 here. All I've done is put a kickstart on there just to get that started. I think what I'm actually going to do is use some side chain using FabFilter there, so I can have a little bit more control over the attack and delay of the sound, because these are pretty set in stone, as you would have it. Heading over to the EQ, let's get there. I've just rolled some off there, boosted it here, so we're getting this detail in this section here that we haven't cut. This is where the kick hits, and that's all I've done, so I've given some breathing room to the kick. So let's just have a listen with the kick in. And let's bypass this. Can you hear how it drastically changes that lower end? That gives it more clarity and lets that snappiness kick in there. So that's the reason for that. It's just simple editing. Then we forget room works. That's obviously it changed its form. It must have been a synth originally. Here I have the compressor. It's kind of emphasizing the lower frequencies on this particular one. So as you can see, I've rounded off this area here, applied a little bit more compression to this area is where the kick is hitting, just to apply a bit more compression to bring it under control a little bit more, so it sounds really tight and controlled in with that kick drum, and then everything else that starts moving in around it can flow in and out of the bass and make it all kind of moving. So we've got the threshold set here at -19, so it's pretty much -20 there at a 2:1 near enough. It's very close to a 2:1 ratio. I've used the punch preset to give it a real punch, as the preset is insinuating. Pretty fast attack. I've just moved it up to stop any clicking happening, and the release is pretty damn fast as well, so we're returning that compressor back to 0 as soon as that bass sound is stopping, and as you can see up here, it's getting straight back up to 0 dB as soon as that sound is stopped. And that helps to add, to make sure it's all nice and clicky. And then the knee's set to hard, not all the way, but it's set to a hard knee, so we keep that stabbiness and that kind of percussive element to it. And then finally we have sausage fattener, and it does what it says on the tin. I think you all know what it is by now, just to beef it up a little bit. So if we just listen to this without the compressor first and then without sausage fattener, and you'll be able to tell what's going on. So that's compression on and compression off. So it has no low end power, and all I'm doing is using that compressor to enhance that lower end. And then sausage fattener, I'm just using it to add beef, and that's what it does. So the reason for controlling everything there, controlling the previous inserts there with a compressor and then not sausage fattener, is just down to the fact it didn't sound as fat as I wanted. So I probably will rearrange them and just tweak it to fit with the track again. And then on the high bass, we don't have much going on, so I must not have attended to this too much. There's not much going on really. I'm trying to keep this raw as well, so it's getting that really nice classic Psytrance element into it. It's not all this really fancy kind of stuff that we're trying to do with Psytrance at the moment, but keep it as original as possible. So on the high bass, we just rolled it off, and then I've just done a scoop here, which is letting the synths breathe. It's giving that room there, but while still keeping some high-end detail. So it just makes it a little bit nicer on the ears as well. And that's the bass at the moment. Maybe a few things will change. I'll put it through a bus, but we can talk about that in a later video. But that's how it's made. So if you want to see any more on the basses, if you want to see it in Massive, for example, if you're more familiar with Massive, let me know and we'll recreate it in Massive. It's no problem at all. But moving on, we are now going to look at this melody here. So as you can guess, we all know what this preset is. It's my go-to preset. I will link it in nearly every video now, and that is Pluck's Heaven. It has been reported not to be working on the download, but I did try it and it does work. I am going to put a different approach to putting presets out there and stuff for you to download. So looking at this is the preset. You can download that in the description as well. Head on to Facebook, like the page, and you'll see free downloads, and then you can have access to all the presets and some free tracks, and I think there's also some free samples on there maybe. So just grab what you can because it's there for free and it'll stay there. So Pluck's Heaven, we're not going to go into how it's made, but what I'm going to tell you is what I've done is you'll notice I've had stabs and no verb. So stabs is now linking up to, I'll show you on the, should be, yeah, oh, we're only on the envelope. So I've attached this to the decay, so we actually shorten the notes down, and then the no verb is what it says it does. It's attached to the reverb, and it totally turns it off. I think it leaves a little bit on, but it totally turns it off to the ears when the track's blended in. So as you can see, I drastically automate that so it goes to more stabby and it turns the reverb off. So just have a listen as it gets to that point. So we kind of go back to more of the raw state of the sound, and as you can see we also turn this down here, which is controlling, if you look number 3, which sounds are in play. So when that's turned up, what that's doing is turning these off. Yeah, so it's reducing it down to just this PWM wave here to give it a singular sound. You can have a mess with it. You can have the preset for yourself. So that's all I've done there. If we just take a quick look here, Kickstarter, self-explanatory, it's just add a bit in there. Then here I've just done a bit of shaping and actually pushed the boundaries with mid and side just to push the stereo image out a little bit because it sounded a little bit too narrow, and the bass is focused in the centre very heavily, like most basses, but this one needs to be really focused in this style of music. So I've pushed the boundaries out, and what we'll do is once we get to the bottom of this list, we'll preview it with various ones off so you can hear what it's doing. Next up in the chain, we have the compressor, and we're using this trick which I showed you in a couple of videos ago, where I did applying more compression to this frequency band here. So these settings are being pushed extra hard on these frequency sections here, whereas these are just going to be pushed to what it says there. So we've got a threshold that matches, that sounds nice. I haven't done it to a preset or anything. This just sounds nice where I want it to be. We've got a ratio of 2.7 to 1. Fast attack, very slow release, and I've just got it set to classic here. So it's just doing some classic compression set with a hard knee because it's quite a transient sound. And again, I will show you how that sounds after we've looked through the rest. So next up, good old sausage fattener. Again, to beef it up, remember when you're using sausage fattener, probably most presets, plugins shall I say, always monitor your gains. Make sure your gains are turned down to compensate for the kind of volume boost that you're giving it, to avoid clipping here and reducing the faders too much on your mixer. So that's adding some beef, and then here I've got fracture. Now this is just a preset, so it's called rolling flange, and I've just put that on there so you'll hear it working in the background if we just listen to it again. And you can hear it still going in the background now. Just a little bit. I can just about hear it in my headphones. And then we go through FabFilter Saturn, so we've actually got another distortion on here. I was going through some crazy times on shaping here by the looks of things. And I've just separated the bands and just applied some brightness and treble here, just to kind of give it a little bit more of a seating right above the track. And then finally we go through Pro Q and we just boost the frequencies here, especially on the side channel, and then just do some roll off where it's been added back in through the other presets. So let's have a listen to what they sound like with nothing on. And we'll put one on at once. So we've got kickstart first. So it's not too intrusive, it's nearly transparent, but it's just there just to add a bit of pace. Then if we put on this Pro Q, we narrow it down to where it needs to be in the track by using the cutoff and boosting its frequencies. This is the one that's pushed it out into the stereo field a little bit more further. Then we've got the compressor, which brings it back under control. So those higher notes are now meeting more of the lower notes, whereas the higher notes seem to spike through. And you can see here where they're spiking through. Some quite loud ones. And then we've got sausage fattener on here, so let's have a look. So that just adds a little bit more brightness back into the mix. Then we have fracture. So now you'll be able to hear what's going on with this. So that's to add a bit of movement, moving round, creating that swirling effect, whilst the other bass stays static. Then we add a FabFilter Saturn to add the presence back in, so you can see I'm not doing anything to the bass here, but I'm editing the presence and the treble. And then finally, I've added a little bit of presence into this mid-range, well, upper mids, to make it stand out and pop out of the track. And then just rolled off this end here. There's a lot of low-end detail come back, even though we've cut it off earlier with the second insert on FabFilter. As you can see, we cut it off quite low, and then we've cut off again. And the reason is Saturn and sausage fattener and all those will add bass back in, so it's just to remove that detail again to clear up the headroom. So that's looking at the synth, and that is all we're at the moment. We've started to develop the melody. We could take a look at that maybe at some point, but just to give you an idea of where this track is going, I'll show you these few bits. Finally, I just want to say thank you for watching the video. If you liked, give me a like. We're hitting 25 likes nearly per video, sort of. So if we can keep doing that, that's what really does help the channel. Your continued support, obviously, and you can find me in the usual locations, which is Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and I'll be posting here once a week, as well as any little bonus snippets on social media. I have had my dad in hospital this last week gone, so it's been a little bit quiet, but I'm trying to get back on track now. Been very, very tired, and I'm still very tired now, but we're getting back there. So anyway, we'll have a look at this rest of this track and just to see what's going on, and it will just fade out to the end screen. So I'll say now, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.